Delivery Malaysia 370, good morning. 370, we are ready, requesting flight level 340 to Beijing.
370, contact Lampur radar 1326, good night.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9, good night. Good night, Malaysian 370.
This material is a comprehensive script chronicling the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370.
Now we've got the latest on the missing Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. New evidence suggests the plane may have flown long after air traffic controllers lost contact. Satellite data indicates the missing jet transmitted its location repeatedly,
detailing the timeline of events, the history of the initial search and debris findings, the newly launched 2025 Ocean Infinity search, and the various theories surrounding its fate. The current narrative buries its most compelling and timely hook, the 2025 Ocean Infinity search and the Blee Marchand analysis, beneath a lengthy chronological retelling of decade-old events.
Yeah, it really is a classic case of prioritizing historical sequence over narrative relevance.
Right.
Because by spending the first 17 minutes just meticulously walking the audience through a strictly chronological account of the 2014 disappearance.
Taking out from Kuala Lumpur the specific air traffic control handoffs.
The transponder going dark over the South China Sea.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
While it's thorough, delivering all of this before introducing the Armada 7806 and the autonomous vehicles, it creates a massive pacing issue. You basically exhaust your audience before they ever reach the new developments.
Exactly. The fundamental weakness here is that by placing the highly advanced AI-driven 2025 search all the way back in Chapter 4, the material forces the audience to wait nearly 17 minutes for the most cutting-edge relevant information.
Right.
And this structure severely dilutes the impact of those new developments.
It really does.
It makes the truly fascinating details, like the autonomous Huygens 6000 drones that can scan at extreme depths, or the specific 38 nautical miles shift into the new Blee Marchand area. It makes them feel like an afterthought.
Yeah, rather than the driving force of the piece.
Precisely, because the listener engaging with this material today, they're doing so to understand the resumption of the search.
Exactly. They aren't here for a history lesson.
Right. So by making them wade through a textbook recap of the widely known 2014 timeline first, the narrative just loses its momentum entirely.
That chronological approach, it might have worked a few years after the disappearance. But a decade later, the audience's baseline knowledge has shifted.
Right. They know the basic.
They know the plane vanished. They know pieces washed up on Reunion Island.
Yeah.
So when you withhold the new aerospace data, specifically that Blee Marchand analysis that actually shifted the search parameters until minute 17, you are fundamentally misjudging what your audience finds valuable.
You risk the viewer simply tuning out.
Completely. They'll assume during that prolonged recap that the piece just has nothing new to offer.
So to solve this, the writer needs to restructure the narrative to open with the new 2025 Ocean Infinity search as a framing device.
I like that.
Yeah, using the autonomous search mission and its specific geographical targets as a compelling lens through which to revisit the past data.
Right.
Instead of pushing the future to the end of the script, you pull the present-day stakes right to the very first page.
And you use the history to justify the current action.
That kind of in medias res opening completely transforms how the audience absorbs that historical data.
It does.
Because when you lead with the 2014 data, it feels like homework.
Yeah.
Submarine diving into the Indian Ocean. And then you explain the 2014 data to justify why the submarine is there.
The history becomes an active clue.
Exactly. It becomes a necessary clue to a present-day mystery.
So what are some concrete examples of how they could actually lay out those beats for the opening?
Well, you could approach this by starting the piece exactly in February 2025, right as the Armada 7806 is deploying its drones.
Right, paint that picture immediately.
Yes, the machinery, the isolation, the high stakes of the operation.
Yeah.
Then, when you are explaining to the audience exactly why these specific drones are searching the Nubile Marchand area, you seamlessly flash back to the 2014 Inmarsat satellite handshakes.
And the fuel exhaustion data?
Right, the data that informed this new trajectory. You are still delivering the essential 2014 timeline, but now it has immediate relevance.
It answers a pressing question about the 2025 operation.
Exactly. It gives the older data a clear narrative purpose.
That's a highly effective way to anchor the listener. Another option for the creator is to open with a stark visual contrast between the two eras of the search.
Oh, to emphasize the scale of the evolution.
Exactly. Start by vividly describing the 4.6 million square kilometer manual search of 2014. Picture the ships trailing acoustic hydrophones in the dark.
Hoping to catch a fading battery ping from the black box.
Right. Then immediately juxtapose that with the laser-focused, unmanned, AI-driven search of 2025. You use that massive technological evolution over the past decade to hook the reader immediately.
That visual contrast is excellent because it shows the audience exactly how much the world has changed and how those advancements make this new search the most viable attempt yet.
And from that powerful opening, you can then selectively weave in the events of that tragic night in 2014, but only when those past events serve to illuminate the current search parameters.
Right. And, that structural shift in the opening doesn't just improve the pacing. It actually solves a secondary issue by establishing a strong, authoritative voice right out of the gate.
Which the script desperately needs.
It really does, especially when it moves into its later chapters. Because right now, the exploration of alternative theories presents highly plausible scenarios and extreme fringe conspiracies with an almost identical level of narrative weight, which inadvertently undermines the overall authoritative tone of the piece.
By basically stating that it's impossible to discuss MH370 without delving into speculation.
Right.
And then it just proceeds to list a variety of theories sequentially, offering very little distinction between them.
Almost no editorial filter.
Exactly. On one hand, it details the recovered flight simulator data from the captain's home, showing a routed path into the southern Indian Ocean.
Hard data.
Yes. And it discusses the heavily documented precedent of UPS Flight 6, where a lithium-ion battery fire caused a catastrophic emergency.
Drawing a direct parallel to the 221 kilograms of lithium batteries on MH370.
Which is a detail that actually contributed to an official ICAO ban on such cargo later on. These are serious data-backed points.
They are. But then, right alongside those rigorously researched hypotheses, it introduces the theory that the plane was hijacked and landed at the U.S. naval base at Diego Garcia.
Right.
A claim supported only by an unverified internet post from a passenger allegedly claiming to have hidden his cell phone in his rectum.
Yeah, it's quite a leap.
And it also includes an anecdote about an oil rig worker seeing a glowing fire and a British yachting enthusiast claiming to see a glowing orange jumbo jet.
It covers an incredibly wide spectrum of ideas.
From official aviation authority actions to literal dark web internet folklore. And it does this with very little navigational help for the reader.
The weakness here is the severe tonal whiplash it creates for the audience.
Totally.
By grouping empirically supported hypotheses right next to completely debunked or highly speculative claims, the creator is presenting them without an editorial boundary.
Right, they're treated as equals.
And because there is no framing device distinguishing the quality of evidence between these claims, the material risks losing credibility with an educated audience.
Absolutely. If a tragic, realistic cargo fire that altered global aviation policy is treated with the exact same analytical seriousness as an internet hoax about a hijacked plane hidden on a military base,
the listener naturally starts to question the reliability of the narrator.
it is a really common trap in documentary or mystery scripting. The writer feels this completionist urge to cover everything the public has debated over the last 10 years.
They want to acknowledge the zeitgeist.
Right. But when a narrator refuses to step in and weigh the validity of these claims, they abandon their role as a trusted guide.
The audience isn't looking for a raw data dump of Reddit threads.
No, they are looking for synthesis and expert curation. When you place a verified ICAO safety ban adjacent to an unverified internet rumor, the stronger evidence doesn't elevate the rumor.
The rumor drags down the hard data.
Exactly. It undermines the whole segment.
So the suggestion here is that the writer needs to implement a structured credibility framework for the theory section.
Yes.
explicitly dividing the possibilities into distinct categories based on the presence of physical data, verified radar, or historical precedent.
Instead of just presenting the theories as a flat sequential list where everything gets equal footing.
Right. The creator must actively categorize the information for the listener, building a clear wall between hard science and internet speculation.
A credibility framework is a brilliant editorial tool. It allows the writer to acknowledge the wilder theories that the public is inevitably curious about, without accidentally endorsing them.
Or letting them contaminate the heavily researched facts.
So how exactly should the creator reorganize this chapter to implement that framework on the page? Can we give some concrete examples?
Sure. One way to execute this is to explicitly separate the theories into distinct, titled segments within the script.
Okay.
The writer could introduce a section specifically titled Data-Driven Hypotheses. In this segment, the focus relies heavily on the simulator data, the Inmarsat handshakes, the cell phone tower ping from the first officer, and the lithium battery fire precedent.
Right, you analyze those points with serious journalistic rigor, exploring the physics and the aviation precedent.
Exactly. Then, the writer creates a clear, undeniable editorial break and transitions into a separate segment called Fringe Speculation.
And the transition language there has to be incredibly precise.
Definitely.
The narrator has to signal to the audience that we are shifting gears. You would use phrasing like, while the hard data points toward the southern Indian Ocean, the decade-long vacuum of answers has naturally bred fringe conspiracies.
Right.
That tells the audience, I am aware of these rumors, but I am putting them in their proper box.
Exactly. In that secondary section, you can briefly acknowledge the Diego Garcia theory, the Philip Wood text message, and the Katherine T sightings to satisfy that public curiosity.
If I didn't have a background in aviation, I would ask exactly the same thing. And the answer is also quite simple. It's because this map is a distortion of what the Earth actually looks like. So a flight path that works on the Earth will not appear correctly on this map, okay? Because it does not reflect the true shape of the Earth. What we need to do is have a look at what this flight path actually looks like on a globe. To do that, we orientate it so that we're looking directly down on top of the route, and you can see that it actually is a straight line between Australia and Santiago. And one of the phrases you might have heard of is a great circle route. Now, a great circle route is the shortest distance between any 2 points on the globe. If I just put in Sydney straight after Santiago, what it's going to do is draw the great circle line back from Santiago to Sydney, and you'll see it basically matches the route.
But crucially, you frame them explicitly as internet lore.
Okay, so
Right, unverified claims entirely unsupported by official investigations. You do not analyze them with the same depth as the cargo fire.
Alternatively, if the writer wants to maintain a single continuous flow rather than breaking it into strict chapters, they could rank the theories from most to least likely based on the general consensus of aviation experts.
Oh, that's an interesting approach.
Yeah, in this structure, you organically enforce the editorial boundary by allocating your runtime proportionately to the credibility of the theory.
Giving the good stuff more time.
Exactly. For instance, you dedicate 5 to 10 minutes thoroughly breaking down the mechanics of a depressurization event or a lithium-ion fire, treating it with the gravity it deserves.
Right.
Then, you spend only 30 seconds explaining the Diego Garcia rumor before swiftly and decisively dismantling it.
The sheer imbalance in screen time communicates to the audience which theories are actually worth their cognitive load.
Precisely. Now, both of those structural changes, reordering the opening and categorizing the theories, do a lot of heavy lifting to establish the script's authority.
They do.
But all of that careful setup needs a proper payoff.
Which brings us to the ending. The conclusion misses a vital opportunity to synthesize the profound technological and emotional stakes of the 2025 search, opting instead for a standard open-ended sign-off that deflates the narrative tension.
Endings are notoriously difficult for ongoing mysteries, simply because there is no neat resolution to offer.
True.
As it stands, the material wraps up the lengthy theories section by briefly discussing an alternate northern flight path proposed by independent investigators in 2018.
Noting that an underwater phase never extended that far north.
Right, and then it just concludes with a very brief sign-off stating, as of now, the disappearance of Flight 370 remains a mystery.